Palantir is at the heart of a pivotal moment of an AI drone ecosystem that's reshaping not just one industry, but multiple industries. If you're short on time and you don't ever watch videos to the end, well, here's the essence. The drone industry is expected to hit almost $100 billion by 2026. The military will take 60% of that growth, private sector 40%. So I'm going to break down 3 companies here that I think are at the heart of this. Ondas Holdings, Red Cat Holdings, and Palantir. And Winston and I have spent countless hours analyzing drone technology, patents, speaking with industry insiders, going through financials. And what we've discovered is that most investors are completely missing the real opportunity here, and they're not aware of the cautionary tale here as well. So if you have a few minutes, let us walk you through it, and you walk away with an understanding that is better than 99% of people out there. Now, speaking of better understanding than 99% of people, you know what the top 1% of traders do and investors? They spot opportunities and stock breakouts before they actually happen. And they get out somewhere near the top. They don't hold on to stuff that collapses, right? Because that's painful and horrible and loses us lots of money. And you might think, yeah, that's a nice thing, but I'm not that person. I haven't got the experience. I haven't got the finance degree. I haven't got the background in banking, and I don't have time to learn it and all that kind of stuff. And I get that. But what if I were to tell you that in about 20 minutes, I could teach you this? I could teach you how to spot the breakouts. I could teach you how to get out near the top. Would that be nice? And you'd probably say, yeah, but, you know, is it realistic? And that sort of thing. Well, what I've done for you is actually recorded a masterclass that you can watch right now. You can leave this video right now. You can go to felixprehn.org/get-free, watch the masterclass like tens of thousands of people already have, and learn the rules that the most successful Wall Street traders use, and the rules that I use and have been using for years. And if you do that, 2025 could be the best year for you yet. And it could be the pivotal moment for your financial freedom trajectory. And I know that sounds almost too good to be true, and a lot of people won't do it because there's a lot of stuff in our brains that we've been taught that it's not possible, and you know, all that kind of stuff. But the tens of thousands of people who have watched it and who've sent me all these nice messages back, how it's amazing and how it's changing their life, well, they got some tremendous benefit out of that. So are you going to take up that tremendous benefit? It's completely free. It'll take you like 20, 30 minutes. You can watch it again and again. You can take notes. I take screenshots and notes. And the link is down below the description. First link at the top of the description. Now, but let's start with understanding what we're dealing with here. Drones, right? Back to drones, or UAVs as they're known in the industry. They aren't just those little quadcopters you might see in the park that, you know, dogs bark at. We're talking about sophisticated machines that are fundamentally changing how businesses operate. The growth we're seeing isn't just impressive, it is transformative. And what's the key driver? It's a perfect storm of tech advancements and changing regulation. Think about this. Autonomous navigation and AI analytics have reached a level where drones can now make complex decisions on their own. So it's not just about flying anymore, it's about processing massive amounts of data in real time. The military sector has been particularly aggressive in the adoption here. Just in the last few months, we've witnessed contracts about how they're pouring, I don't know, billions into developing more advanced, reliable drone solutions. But what's actually fascinating is that the commercial applications are catching up rapidly. And this is where it gets crucial. The regulatory environment is shifted. The US FAA has been issuing more BVLOS waivers. What the hell does that stand for? That's Beyond Visual Line of Sight operations. In simple terms, this means drones can now legally operate without direct visual contact, which opens up huge new opportunities. So what started as experimental projects in 2025 is becoming full-scale operations. Energy companies are using drone fleets for infrastructure inspections. You know, helicopters do that. Helicopter pilots with a helicopter and another guy fly along power lines and check them. Talk about cost. You can do that with a drone. Logistics firms are revolutionizing delivery systems. Defense contractors, well, they're just changing not just surveillance and security, but also shooting at bad people. So where is the money to be made? Well, let's look at where the money is flowing into the drone sector. First up, we've got defense and security. This is the largest segment, but it's also the most profitable segment. And in my experience in investing here, well, it's taught me one thing: follow the government contracts if you can. You tend to find the most reliable revenue streams once they hit. So the defense sector isn't just buying drones, they're investing in the systems. We're talking about reconnaissance platforms that can operate in, unfriendly airspace, surveillance systems that can run 24/7, and then also counter-drone capabilities, because the other side's also going to have drones. So what about on the commercial side? And then we look at the actual stocks and how we might want to invest in those. Well, the most aggressive adopter of the technology is the energy sector, because they're spending millions of dollars on helicopters, and they obviously don't want to do that anymore. So instead of sending teams of workers up transmission towers or wind turbines and expensive and dangerous work, they're deploying drones that can inspect the entire power grid in a fraction of time. And the cost savings, as I say, are millions per year for major utilities. Now, everyone really is always talking about delivery drones, right? Amazon delivering stuff into your bedroom window, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, they're going to be coming, but there is a catch. The regulatory environment, the practical challenges like payload limitations, they're definitely slowing it down. And you're talking about delivery in urban areas with lots of other stuff going on. That's probably the most challenging environment for tech and regulation. I think it'll take a little longer than we'd like it to. And then finally, there is also a sector you probably haven't thought of: agriculture. They're quietly revolutionizing agriculture with drone technology. They're not just flying with cameras, they are basically precision farming. So they can analyze crop health, they can manage irrigation, and even handle spraying of whatever it is that they spray with incredible accuracy. And then we're seeing the whole thing kind of overlap. The military applications are finding their way into commercial use and vice versa. It's sort of cross-pollination. And that's why the timing of these investment opportunities is so critical right now. So let's start with our first company here, Ondas Holding. It's a company that's positioning itself at the intersection of industrial wireless networks and autonomous drone systems. So they have a subsidiary called American Robotics and Aerobotics. And they just secured a $30 million funding from a long-term investor. And what they're building are autonomous drone systems that are designed for defense and industrial security applications. And Ondas has something that very, very few people have. They have an FAA Part 107 waiver. You're like, oh, finally, hallelujah. The hell is that? Well, they have that for their American Robotics division. So they have permission to operate drones beyond visual line of sight, which is a crucial advantage which puts them ahead of many competitors. If you look at their financials, well, this is what I was saying about you got to be cautious and careful here. Their cash flow and profit health metric might make some of you nervous. Gross profit margins are super low at just 15%. So yeah, they're making, in theory, a little bit of money with their core product, but really they're in a very, very early stage. So the $30 million they just got, is it about keeping the lights on? No, it's kind of to rocket fuel their R&D and market expansion. So remember, this is a company in its growth phase, investing heavily into future capabilities, so it's a risky play. Any early stage investment in new technology, you probably have a 9 out of 10 chance that these sort of companies will go out of business. So how do we therefore look at the stock chart? How do we trade it? Well, let me pull up in TradeVision here for you, ONDS, and TradeVision is the platform that we built to give you access to the same high quality data that Wall Street has access to and level the playing field. And I'll show you how I use it, and I use it every day for everything, and we're building a ton more amazing stuff out there in the next couple of weeks and months. So here is Ondas Holdings. The first thing I would always do is toggle on the MA50, that's the 50-day moving average line. And what do you see? Well, you see that we really sort of broke out pretty significantly around here, 13th of December, on some pretty major volume. There was actually a warning sign on the 11th even, but the volume suddenly like doubled from one day to the next. And that kicked off the rally here. So if I am, and I'm a little bit space constrained here on a laptop, But yeah, there we go. Right? That was basically the breakout. And if you watch the masterclass, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. So that was a pretty good call, right? You could have bought this at about $1. Now it's trading at $2.56. So you might be thinking, well, is it too late? What's going to happen here? Well, the rally up looked pretty sweet. If I'm allowed to get a pen here, very nice rally up, and the volume was also peaking. And then we had here very little volume on that last trading day. But do remember, as I'm recording this, we're in the midst of holiday season, so the volumes are a little bit less important right now because most people are literally on holiday. But yeah, this is a pretty incredible breakout story that we've had here. Now, if we go back in time, this thing was at one point trading at $16. This was in January 2022. So are we headed back there? Well, maybe not quite that, but I think there is a chance we might go back into the sort of $5, $6, $7, $8 zone here, in which case this breakout might have some real legs. Now, with these kind of stocks, you definitely want to set yourself a stop loss. That's very, very important. Actually, you want to do that with every single trade you ever do. And I'm not recommending the trade. You have to come to your own conclusion and whether you can handle this sort of stomach churning risk profile of something that goes from 16 to pennies or cents and now back to $2.50. Is there an opportunity here? I would argue that there is, but as I say, it depends on like your stomach lining. And then next up, we have Red Cat Holdings. And you know how much I like cats. I was immediately interested. And they're doing something very different in the tactical drone space. They're Black Widow drones, which sounds pretty ominous. They are basically pushing the boundaries of what's possible in defense reconnaissance, to use that fancy word. And they have a collaboration with none other than Palantir, which we'll get to in just a moment. So they're integrating Palantir's AI-driven visual navigation system into their drones. So what does that matter? And why does it matter? Well, imagine a drone that can operate even when GPS signals are jammed or unavailable. And in modern warfare scenarios, that isn't just an advantage, that's a game changer and actually going to be required because the other side will definitely jam your signals. So the partnership with Palantir isn't just about tech, it's about credibility. When a major player, and Palantir is now the largest defense contractor by market cap, chooses to work with you, it is a validation of your capabilities. And if you look at their financials, we see some interesting stuff here. Price momentum is stellar. A grade, which means the stock's gone up a lot. But what's even more impressive is their revenue growth, 95%. So explosive growth. We like that. Now, are they making money? Nope, they're losing it. And if you're a value investor, you might be out on that, and I totally get that. But remember, this is typical for companies in a high growth, tech-intensive sector in an early stage. They're scaling up. They're not really looking at making money. They're looking at just scaling up, building the best product, and then eventually they'll make some money. So how do we look at that chart, and is this a good time to buy it? Well, let's look at the stock chart here. I'll put it up again in TradeVision. And by the way, there is a week's trial for TradeVision. You can play around with it. You can track your trades and your profits, and there's a bunch of amazing indicators and so on that usually only institutions have access to. So what do we see here? Well, we see the classic breakout pattern down here again, 14th of November. You could have gotten in on this at about $3.80 if you'd watched the masterclass. And then secondly, well, you see where the resistance is here, that red line there. What does that mean? Well, that's the line where basically the market starts to sell off. And we know that from analyzing every single open options position out there in the stock market. Again, we have access to that data. So $13 is the resistance, and we've been hamstringed by that for the last week or so. Support sits down at 1150, which is useful. But we're still in a pretty bullish setup here. It's just volumes fizzled out a little bit over the holiday season. So is this a positive setup? Well, it's really the classic breakout story. You get the breakout. Let me get a pen. Get the breakout down here as volume spikes. And again, guys, watch the masterclass. You know what I'm talking about. You go up. Inevitably, you get a second chance. You always get a second chance. But then look at the volume as we got that second chance. Big jump up again. So that's very, very positive on earnings. And then we get that rally up again. So it's a very, very bullish setup. That's the way I look at it. Now, is it going to be a volatile setup? Yeah, undoubtedly. The stock was trading at next to nothing in 2021, a couple of dollars. So now we're at $12.80. So it's been a pretty big move there, and definitely the Palantir partnership is helping them in terms of credibility. But what makes Red Cat, I think, interesting is the they're focused on the defense sector. So they're not trying to do everything. They basically got their niche, their tactical drones, advanced AI capabilities, and they're executing on that. And defense spending on autonomous systems like drones is going to explode, in my humble opinion. And these guys are basically positioning themselves to exactly where the money is. Now, numero tres. Let's talk about Palantir here. They're basically redefining on what's possible with AI. So they don't build drones. It's a software company. But they're becoming the brain behind the entire drone ecosystem. So their recent moves are something building up to something even huger. So they're partnered with Red Cat, L3Harris, Surf Air Mobility, and Palantir is basically taking the role here of prime contractor. And that's typically what used to be, your classic old steel and metal defense contractors. And the software that Palantir builds isn't just making the drones smarter. It's creating this interconnected intelligence system that connects the data from the satellites and the drones that survey and the information from the guys on the ground and all of it. And it feeds it back into a system that can access it so that the drones can make better decisions, whether that's navigation or battlefield awareness or anything really. And their financials, well, they look a little bit healthier than the other two companies we looked at because Palantir's been around for longer. So we got AAA grades here in cash flow, growth health, and price momentum. But what really stands out is the gross profit margin. So gross profit margin, think of it this way. It tells you, is there an alternative product that I could buy that's cheaper? So if you have a gross profit margin of 81%, which is what Palantir has, it is basically the market saying, we're happy to pay for your stuff, whatever you want, because we can't find it anywhere else. And that is the power of a good business model. Now, I get the stock price looks high, but remember in tech, and especially in AI, the winner often takes most, if not all, of the market. And Palantir is becoming the intelligence layer that powers every military drone out there. So how do we trade a thing like Palantir or invest in a thing like Palantir in a moment like this? Well, again, let me pull up the stock chart for you here. And what you see, well, I painted in here the last breakout, which was at about $47 or something like that. And then we have this lovely rally up here, as illustrated by my green line up. And then on the last trading day, what happened? Well, we dropped quite a lot. We actually dropped below the support line here at 76, which is where the market is meant to be supportive and is meant to buy Palantir. So how do you drop through a support line? Bad news, disappointments, general fear and frustration in the market. But what I would point out is that the volume is super, super low because everybody is on holiday. So in these holiday days where there's very little trading, because most big traders are literally on holiday, a little bit of bad news, a little bit of fear, a couple of people selling can actually move a stock quite significantly. So watch out for proper trading days coming up again in January and see what's happening there. And the support is sort of that $76 zone there. But you have also another support line, which is essentially that recent set of lows here, this sort of zone, which is all of these lows we had throughout December. And that sits more in the 71 to 72 kind of range. So it could be that we bounce down to that level and then bounce back up. I think that's kind of a fairly likely outcome, unless we get a proper wobble in January, which of course is also possible. So is this the sweetest time to buy it? I would wait for us to essentially bounce off whatever trend might be, and it could be low, it could be high. I tend not to buy things that are kind of falling. It's usually not a great idea unless you have this insanely long time horizon. You're like a 20-year long investor or something like that, and you have the patience of a saint, which I don't. But right now, I'd be a little cautious, just on momentum play here. But when Donald comes in, your new president in the US, it is likely, in my opinion, that Palantir is going to get a heck of a lot more government contracts than currently out there, although some of that, of course, is already priced in. But to me, Palantir is it's going to be the ecosystem of the US defense system. And all their drones and all the flying things and all the self-driving things and all the floating things will all feed into Palantir's network. And therefore it's a recurring, massive, multi-billion-dollar revenue stream from the US military that just creates this lock-in effect. And it's just, these guys are at the heart and center of it. So out of these three, Palantir is, even though it's highly priced, probably the least risky, because they're not going to go out of business, right? The other two companies might. But of course, as always, you have to come to your own conclusions. This is just, Winston's research, and he does get distracted. But yeah, in my experience, I think we got these amazing opportunities here this year where technology, self-driving, self-flying AI is going to transform everything. And the spending, first in military and then second in commercial, is going to catch up. And you're going to get used to a world where there's stuff flying overheads everywhere as regulation starts to permit it. And you have to think about where you want to position yourself with that. Do you want to buy the guys who are building the drones, or do you want to maybe just buy the sort of software layer that they're all running on? You can kind of see where I'm leaning towards, but there's definitely some interesting opportunities here. And we're gonna look out for the breakouts. We're gonna benefit from those, and gonna have an amazing 2025. So how do you have an amazing 2025? The most amazing year you've ever had? Well, two things. Get yourself some decent data by playing around with Trade Vision. There's a week's trial. Go to felixprehn.com/Trade Vision, and then watch that masterclass. Study it while it's still out there. I'm working on another version of it, but do watch it while it's still there. felixprehn.com/masterclass, and actually invest in this, because this is the skills that you'll always have, you'll always take with you, that'll help you for the rest of your life. And I wish you a beautiful, amazing, successful, healthy, and wealthy start to the year. All the best. There is one massive growth sector for 2025 that everyone's missing out on. Everyone's focused on the AI thing, but they're all missing the one pick and shovel play that is expected to explode massively.